So we've done a session before and I thought this would be just a little refresher because we have so many new companies in the program and hopping on today. So I thought we'll do a little, very briefly, over arching thing of, funding, because of course everybody here on this call needs money. And it's really tied to where you are in the startup process. So this is the startup curve that we like to show. Before the startup, you're kind of there, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have this amazing thing. I want to do this, and life is going to be amazing, and I'm going to change the world and all those things. And then you realize, oh my gosh, this is really hard, and it takes so much longer, and I need all those resources, and I don't even know what to do. So you kind of drop down. And then you experiment and pivot. And this is really, I like it where it goes back and forth, because you kind of might be in this like vortex of things for a while. And then all of a sudden, things start working and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing again. And you find the holy grail of startup, you find a product market fit, and then things starting to go up. So the UACI really supports companies in this vortex of things. So some of y'all go through it, like it's nothing, and others might be stuck in there for a while. It just all depends on so many things that we continuously talk about. And so we overlaid kind of the startup funding process. Oops, and when I'm very lightly, whoa, very touchy. So what we call is you go from idea to exit, and exit could just be that you have an ongoing company that has steady and stable revenue. But, there's all kind of those different stages in between that we incubator and startup provider people like to talk about and put it in boxes. And then really the funding kind of lays over sort of like this. Initially when it's just the idea and you decide this is a thing you want to do, typically there's prizes, family, friends, and what we call fools, or, other experts in self-funded. I know people with their credit card, maxed out, mortgage on their house, those types of things. And then there's grants, seed funding through angels, venture capital, and then debt. Really, credit cards would kind of go into the self-debt category. And what we're talking about here is kind of, it's a grant or a prize. Potato, we can argue about that. I think they call it a grant, but it's money. It's non-dilutive money. So you get the money, you don't have to give up any equity, you don't have to pay it back. So that's what this money is that we're talking about today. And that's the Innovation Challenge Grant. It's through the Arizona Commerce Authority. For some of you that are not in Arizona, it's basically the Commerce Department of the state. So our Commerce Department is a public-private entity, changed significantly about, 15 years ago. So it used to be called Arizona's Commerce Department, and then they changed a little bit just to make it more applicable and really boost the Arizona ecosystem in many directions. So they have this challenge that they put on every year. So it is an annual opportunity. And what you get for it, they usually get 100 to 200 applications or so. Just really depends on many criteria. What are my variables is what I'm looking for. And at the end, they said like 10. They always say up to 10. So in case, they only find 9 really good ones. But I've never seen where they don't select 10. So usually 10 companies. And what you get if you win, make it all the way to the end, you get up to $150,000. Again, I've never seen it where it's less than 150 of non-dilutive funding. And then you also get enrolled or participate in their venture ready. They call it an accelerator. So basically you just get additional support through mentors and it's very programmatic. The way it works, you fill out the application, and that for the first one, that's what we're talking about today. It's a 2-pager. And then they have a selection process, 25, 15, final 10. And for each of them, you would have to fill out another application, a little bit more informative and in detail than the others. Takes about 4 months to go through the whole process and to start getting the money. And it is a great format for feedback. Also, if you plan to be in Arizona or get more involved in Arizona and are starting to look for other money in Arizona, the judges and mentors and all that are in the ecosystem. So they start getting to know you, start getting to see, what you're about. And then they may see you at idea funding or what is that, venture madness and those kinds of things. So you're starting to build this relationship. So we also have had some success. So 5 of our companies that have gone through the UACI program have received that money. And a couple of them are, actually 3 of them are still in the program. So CeliosDX used to be MSCX. They received, was one of the first rounds. So whenever they started, they had that. And then the other 4 have gotten it over the years. Sylvan Source just won it last year, I believe. And it's up on the website of the ACA, so you can look that up. And any questions so far? And Steve, I think I see your thumb. And feel free to put questions in the chat, which, oh my gosh, I have to find the chat button here. There's a chat. There's questions. Okay. Oh, thank you, Anthony, for the high T difference. Sorry, I'm just now seeing the chat. Oh my gosh. So no question. If you ever have questions, down on the bottom where it says the what are they calling it now? Oh, it's called more reactions. If you go to a reaction button, you always can do raise your hand, and then you go into the first stop, and then you can lower it. Oh, good grief. Or you can, of course, always put a question into the chat. And it seems that it says there's people in the waiting room. Amanda, do you have time to check that? Yes, Ashok. Ashok?
Can you go 2 slides back where you define all the kinds of funding?
This one?
Yeah. Where do you put crowdfunding in this?
I put that in the early self, family, friends, and prices. So family, friends, because crowdfunding, well, there's 2 different kinds of crowdfunding, right? But there's the one like a Kickstarter where you get money and you don't have to give any equity in return. So that's often,
that is grants. That is under grants, etc. Right? Competition and prizes. That is different than the crowdfunding that you do a campaign, raise funds.
Yeah. So there's 2 different kinds of crowdfunding. So there's crowdfunding for it's almost like a pre-sale where, people give you money and they don't really get anything in return. Sometimes you get the product or whatever. And then there's the equity crowdfunding. And the equity crowdfunding is really complex and haven't seen too much success on that, but I would put that probably more in the, between grants and angel area, because then you have to deal with investors. You have to give up some shares and all that. So 2 different things though, so I always want to make sure if we talk about crowdfunding like a Kickstarter or crowdfunding like an angel list. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we have sessions on the tour if you want to have more information about that. One thing is, people think, oh, I'll just put that down and I get all this money. What often they don't realize, if you haven't done it already, is you still need to know the people. So there's statistics, but 80% plus minus of the people that actually give you money in either of those scenarios are people that you already know. So it's not, all those strangers all of a sudden oh yeah, let's give money to Ashok because, And again, we can talk more about that. So let's see. Oh, okay. Nobody in the waiting room. All right, good. It's all good. So eligibility, and if you go on the website, this you can already see, so you can read all the text to it. But basically, you do have to fit into one of the industries that they're listing, and it's pretty much what the goal is of this money is to support innovative startups in the state of Arizona to get over the edge to get much bigger and employ people, and those people then get salaries, and on their salaries they pay sales tax, which goes back to the state. So this is kind of how the money flows from the state perspective. So from your perspective, then, you need to know it needs to be an innovative company that's ready to grow, and again, if you don't quite fit there, or you think you're always way too early, still apply because of all the feedback you can get. You do need to set up as an entity, as a for-profit entity. And I put our roadmap number 2 there because that's when we discuss that. Number of employees needs to be 2 to 29. And they do spell out what they consider an employee. So employee does not need to be paid, but needs to put full-time effort towards the company. So for those that have a full-time day job, but you're still like putting 30 or so hours a week into the company, that can qualify. So you just need to look at that. Assets less than 10 million. I think none of us has a problem with that. Location, and that's also where some of you may think, oh, I don't qualify because I'm in Australia or in Idaho or whatever, because we have so many of you that are out of state. The expectation is that you move your headquarters to Arizona within 12 months. So, something to consider, like, well, if I get the money, would I want to come? Those kinds of things. But again, this would be, you don't have to decide this right now. That would be later. And then also what they mean with commercialization timing, what they really, really, really like to see is having revenue within the next 12 months. So, and we'll talk a little bit later when we talk through the thing. If you've already received the money, you cannot apply again. They had to do that because one company won twice in the early beginnings, and it was like, we want to spread the wealth. And then of course there's always the discretion of the Arizona Commerce Authority to decide whatever they decide. Right. That's always the case, right? Any price, anything is that's kind of what it is. So there is the 4 rounds. The first round is, again, what we're talking about. It's this 2-pager to apply, usually over 100 or so, depending on the year. Then they select up to 25. Out of those, they select up to 15, and then they announce the final 10. So pretty straightforward with the rounds. Application timeline is here. You can find it on the website, which I did list in that, but I will be sending out those slides to all of you so you have that. So basically you apply in this next month, and then if you were to get money, you probably would get it sometime in January. Also quite typically that, that there's a delay of several months between application and reward. So now we're gonna go through the application. And like I said, y'all don't have that unless you've been exposed before. And there's the 6 parts to it, and the 6 parts must fit on the 2 pages. And if you're newer to the program and you haven't really done any pitches, you go, oh my gosh, how can I fit my entire company story on 2 pages? And yes, you can, and you will, and we'll help you to do that. So we'll just go through that. And Steve, do you think I should show now our successful application, or should I just go through the sections?
Say that one more time. Sorry, I got a lot of background noise.
Yeah, sorry. Should I show now our example, or should I just go through that and then show the example later?
Yeah, maybe show the example at the end, I think.
At the end? Okay, so I'll go through.
Yeah, just go through.
We do have an example. I got permission to show a winning application, except I only found like a previous a draft version, but that's okay. All right. So, and I also tied all of the sections for the Innovation Challenge to the roadmap items, because all of you are familiar with our UACI roadmap. And, that is just highlighting all the stuff we talk about all the time, has the practical application to really forward your business. So, when you work through all those different items of the roadmap, you should always have value from that for when you apply for grant application, for when you do your business plan, when you really, when you do your executive summary, for when you do pitches. It's all very directly tied to each other. So we'll just go through the elevator introduction, and that's literally the words from the application. So in a few sentences, state what you're doing and why it's important. And it's literally like maybe 3 sentences that you have for this. And like I said, we'll have an example pretty soon. Part 2 is the market and industry analysis. So this is about, how big it's the TAM, SAM, SOM. We had a session about that a few weeks ago. How big is the overall market? Where is your part in that market? So this is, it's always a little tricky because, let's just say you make, and I don't know why this is popping in my head, but let's just say you make a light bulb that is for submarines, right? So what is your market? Is it the submarine manufacturing? No, probably not. Is it the light bulb market? Maybe, probably not either. But, it's some intersection of those two. So you cannot say, oh, the light bulb market, and I'm going to capture 10% of it. Probably not. Or the submarine market, because you're making light bulbs for the submarine. You have to kind of put them two together. And then you would say, we'll capture 5% or whatever of that market. And ideally, you also know, is it a growing market, a shrinking market, a changing market, a new market? And then all those different challenges that come with that. And of course, for this part, we do have our interns. If you don't know about the interns, you were introduced to that in the orientation, and it is an ongoing program. So if you need some support and help figuring out some market questions, we have the application that you fill out to get access to an intern. And Susan is here, so I'm going to just pick on you, Susan. Susan is really great helping you frame the questions that you may want answered, and she has a good understanding of what the students are capable of. So encourage you to work with Susan and Casey to frame that. Susan?
Absolutely, I'm available to help you with that. And I just wanted to go back to the market sizing analysis for a sec, because there's a lot of market information floating around out there. And so it's very important to look at all of the market information, determine what is really credible and what's consistent in the research that you're seeing, so that you're putting forth the best possible numbers in these sections. So it's sometimes tempting to just grab the first number that you happen to like for your market size, but that's not necessarily the best way to go. And I'm happy to help anybody with working through that as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, this one is especially what I've seen over the years. If you're the technologist and the researcher, you don't really want to deal with that so much, but you should, because at the end, you do want to sell to somebody your thing or your process or whatever it is, right? So maybe even, the cancer, let's just also, if we have I do see some bio companies here, if you're doing a cancer drug, you cannot just claim the whole cancer drug market, right? You have to go, okay, which type of cancer are we addressing? Maybe it's the breast cancer, so you want to look at that market, or maybe even more detailed because it's breast cancer stage 3 market, so, pretty quickly you can hone more into where you are. So super important, ongoing. The market, oh my gosh, it changes. So you're never done doing this. And again, just picking on my scientists and technologists, which I love y'all, because that's why we're here to help you. If you don't believe that, look at CompuServe, ongoing company, and poof, gone. They kind of didn't follow the market. Blockbuster, for anybody that remembers Blockbuster, they said, nobody will ever just, download a movie. Oh my gosh. And Netflix, poof, blew them out of the water. And what's happening now? Netflix is in trouble. So market always changes. Don't think, if you have today something, it'll be like that forever. Maybe the people that still have the Harvest Brown or Harvest Gold, I think it was called, appliances in their kitchen. It's a US American reference. So I learned about it. An avocado, I think avocado was a popular color in the kitchens. So the market does change. We don't like that anymore. All right, go-to-market plan. Again, often a little weary for especially our deep sciencey colleagues here. But it is, how are you planning to sell that thing? And in the beginning, you may just have a plan. The further down, you may already know, my cancer drug thing, it's gonna be sold to pharmas and then they will distribute it. Or, we're going direct to consumer, or we'll have it in a catalog for, somebody to pick out. So the better you know how in the end you will sell that thing, this is where that's described. And again, Steve is such a fabulous resource for that. He sold different things to different people and knows how to sell stuff. So if you need help with that, even, what are the options? Sometimes you may not think of what the options are. So I encourage you to do that. But that's super important because remember, they want you to have revenue in about 12 months, so you really want to think about it and understand that. And then here, Part 4, this is where you get to geek out. You get a whole section about what your thing does and how it's developed and where you are and all this stuff, like what is it that you're actually doing, but can't be too technical because of course, you get like one sentence about, or maybe 2 sentences about that because you want to address the other things. And then economics, another one that's like a little rough sometimes, but this is the one, how this is how you're making money, so you just describe what it is, who's going to buy it, how they're going to buy it. So now it's like, okay, how am I going to make money? Is it, are we licensing it and we get a license revenue? Are we selling it and then we get a profit? All these types of things. And then, and this is also over time. Today we make 0 money, and by the end of next year, we'll make $500,000, just something, and in between. And attached with this one is a fin model that I will show you. So you also have to fill that out. And then, there it is actually right here, fin model. If this looks like totally strange to you, I encourage you to get with Jody. Jody is our subject matter expert on finance and accounting. She's quite familiar with this because, again, it's been around for many years. It is a funky form. So, if you haven't seen it before and you do have a fin model and you're trying to translate yours into this, may be a little challenging. So definitely encourage you to get with Jody. As you will also see, it typically has the last year on there. Because they want to see, were you last year, did you have revenue already? Were you just at 0? And then this year you're saying you're 5 million. So it's a little weird, so they don't be confused by why they're looking back when they're startups. Well, startups are around for a few years before they're going out usually. Then it has like explanations on, the fin table. So that's, again, I just copied directly out. And then part 6, this is the risk versus talent narrative. So that's really about the team. So you want to, talk about who is on the team currently, and always remember to put advisors on there. So, a lot of you, again, it's like 1 or 2 or 3 people in the company, really dedicated, but you may have advisors, and it's perfectly fine. We actually like it if you put UACI on there. You can say we're in the UACI startup incubation program. It does have meaning. So feel free to utilize that. And then on this one, you want to be open, we're going to hire another sales guy, or we're going to need a research lady, or, whatever it is that's quite apparent that you need. Perfectly fine to do that because they want to know, okay, they understand what their gaps are and they know how to address it.